weigh quite a bit.
Quite a bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I was on the rescue at the time. We had a pier fire in another one in Charlestown, and Lieutenant Minahan, Stevie Minahan, got killed. And we were in that fire. In fact, I got lost in there myself. And if it wasn't for Jimmy Hardy, who was a fellow firefighter with me on the rescue, I probably would have gotten killed.
What
We
happened?
responded to they struck a box for the building and everything, and I had been driving the rescue that night. And going over the North Washington Street Bridge, I looked down at the right and I see a small pier fire. I mean, I don't think it was any bigger than an ash barrel. So you kind of size buildings up when you go into them and everything, and I said, well, we get in there. I said, we won't be in there that long, So we get down there, and I remember Engine 8 dragging out a big line down alongside of the pier and into the warehouse itself. So when we got down there, I grabbed the mask and nonchalantly, walked into the middle of the warehouse, and we were looking around, and it was clear as a bell, and they were looking for windows that they could open up or a door that they could get on the outside of the pier. So with that, you could hear the fireboat, pulled up outside, and you could hear the engines roaring. They got big diesel engines on them things that pump out quite a bit of water. And you could hear the water beating off the back of the building. And I remember standing in there with some of the guys from Engine 8 and myself and guys on the rescue. And then the next thing you know, you looked up and you could see the smoke coming down from the ceiling, and you could see the smoke coming up from the floor. It was almost like we were in the middle of a sandwich here. And it was that creosote. You can't breathe that stuff. That stuff will tear your heart out. So I remember having a face piece of my mask just hanging on my coat. And next thing I know, everybody, we better get out of here, because we knew that we were in a bad spot. So next thing you know, everybody disappeared. They said evacuate the building. So I'm standing there and I take the face piece off of my coat and I put it on the regulator, and then I turn the air on and everything because you needed to breathe, And I remember looking at the lally columns that were holding up the roof, and I could see fire pouring up from the floor. So with that, now you turn around a couple of times, you don't even know where you are. You're like in the middle of a gymnasium, and now try to find your way out. And I remember everybody was gone. It was as quiet as a church mouse. And I find a line on the floor, and I'm following the line, and we have a procedure they call long lug out. You feel for the long lug, and that'll tell you the way the hose went. But when you take 200 or 300 feet of hose and you put it in a big pile and you try to follow the long lug out, it doesn't work. So the next thing I know, I'm there by myself. And I remember Jimmy Hardy, he got to the doorway and he turned around and he started hollering for me, and I said, Jimmy, where are you? I'm over here. He said, over where? I can't see nothing, I said, well, keep hollering. I said, so I can hone in to where you're at. So anyways, I found him. I got outside and I took a deep breath and I was, wow. I said, that was scary. So in the meantime, the deputy wanted us to go on the other side of the warehouse with our saws and open up the overhead door. And that's where they used to push freight cars in, a set of tracks that went inside of the warehouse. So we got the saws, we go over there, we started cutting the door open, and then the deputy's driver come over and he says, Deputy wants you right away. He says, there's a couple of guys missing. So on the way back, I said to the lieutenant, we used to carry 2 masks, an hour mask and a half-hour mask. And all we had to do was just change the face piece. So on the way back, I said, let's grab the hour mask. I said, I ain't going back in there again, without a little bit of extra air. So we started up on the pier and everything, and the next thing you know, the 2 guys, they found them, and they were in a stairwell. And they got them out through to a penthouse up on the roof, and they brought them down. And I looked at them, I said, guys are dead. They were dead, you know, and they got them in an ambulance and they flew them down to, what do you call it, a hyperbaric chamber down in New London, Connecticut. And they stuck them in there and they survived. But when I seen them, I said, they're dead. So meantime, Ladder 15 had gone in there looking for these two guys. And again, they could only go so far. They're on a ladder company. They don't have hose. And what hose that was there was in a big pile. But they got in there. And they weren't in there that long. And then they started to evacuate, come out of the building. And I was standing in the doorway. And I counted them as they come out. 3 of them came out. And then the last one out turns around and says to me, he said, where's Stevie? I said, Stevie who? He said, Stevie Minahan. I said, he didn't come out. He said, well, he's in there. So what we did is we carried these cables, these 50-foot cables. We carried them on the rescue. They had hooks on them. I said, I'm not following the hose to go back in there. So we took the cable, we hooked it on a chain link fence outside. And the 4 of us got on the cable and we stretched it and went into the building. And we went from side to side, moved up 2 or 3 feet, side to side. Figure if he was anywhere within that area, we would have found him. But he had gotten on the radio at that point and said that he was in trouble, he was lost, and he was running out of air. Now, the problem with that was, we're a rescue company, and there was only 1 radio amongst 5 guys. So we never heard him. So anyway, after about a good half hour, an hour or so, we figured that he had died. So we got back outside. While we were in there, the fire started coming up behind us. We had no line. We couldn't stay in there. So we're jumping through flames to get out of the warehouse. So we figured maybe if he found a window or a door, he could have been down in the water, hanging on a pylon or something underneath the pier. So we went down there, we were looking around, we couldn't find him nowhere. So anyway, as time went on, the fire was knocked down, the ceiling came in, the walls toppled over, and the next morning around 6 o'clock in the morning, the commissioner grabbed me and he said, look, I need somebody to go in there and find him. He said, if you don't want to go in there, he said, I'll get some. I said, no. I said, I'll go in. So back in again, I go and crawl underneath the walls that collapsed and the ceilings, everything's still smoldering and everything, and started crawling over, debris and so on and so forth. And Jimmy Hardy come in on the other side and everything, and he get in there in about 5 or 10 minutes. He says, I found him. So he was way over from where I was. So we go over there, and sure enough, he was dead. But they brought in the priest, the commissioner, the deputy, and the guys from his company came in, and then they put him in the flexi cart and put him in a stretcher, and they took him out. And that was like one of the worst ones, I guess. When you get trapped and somebody dies and somebody almost dies, it's pretty tough,
Was he close to getting out, or was he?
No, actually, when we found him, he was probably towards the end of the warehouse, and it looked like he was close to a door, and he had what they call a closet rake, and you could see the claw marks on the plastered wall where he tried to go through the wall.
You must have known what he felt like, because you were trapped. So.
Well, I did.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. And the odd thing about it was I ran into his wife numerous times at different functions or whatever, and I had the hardest time actually trying to talk to her, knowing what I have gone through, and it's just, there was something there that I couldn't talk to her, and she knew I was there or whatever, and this kid knew it, so. But then after, I want to say maybe a couple of years, I ran into her again, and then I got the courage to go over and talk to her,